So this is book 2 of the 52 book challenge. We have Fredrich Nietzsche, the the Will to Power. Now, just a little backstory. I didn't know who Fredrich Nietzsche was. I like philosophy, and I'm more so aligned with, I would say, like, what are the philosophers that I read. Um, I really was kind of more into Plato and the Greek philosophers, but I started getting into um, some of the more modern philosophers to kind of understand, um, I guess, naturalism, um, existentialism, atheism, things of that nature. Just understanding these, nihilism, um, and kind of the outlook of society. So I came across Friedrich Nietzsche, found this book. It just looked really cool because it was just like it's like blue here and then it's green and then it's like this. So it looked pretty cool, and picked up this book. Didn't really have much background knowledge about who he was, what this was at all, but picked up this book, started reading it. This book is a collection of Nietzsche's notes during just his tenure as a philosopher, um, and kind of just gives you insight to his writing processes. It's not really a traditional book. It's reading a collection of someone's notes within their notebook. So this is their personal notebook. So this kind of gives you an idea of his thought process and things like that. The book goes over a lot of different things like nihilism, religion, will, um, morality, things of that nature, um, humanity, the thought, human nature in a metaphysical sense, metaphysics, science. So he kind of just critiques everything. It's just his critiques of all these different things. Um, Me never reading Nietzsche. First of all, I would say that this is a not a traditional book. So if you're going to read this book and you're thinking it's going to be written in such a way that it's going to be written like a traditional book, it's not. So it can be kind of hard to read if you're caught off guard. And what I mean by hard to read is that it's just not, if you're not prepared, you won't be expecting the structure or the format that it's written, because it's literally just his notes. So if you look how it's structured now, that on the other hand, once you get used to that, makes this a little easier to read. But the central narrative is just the will to power. I'm not going to spoil the book too much, but that's the central narrative, and this is kind of a underlying narrative within all of Nietzsche's works. But this is kind of, I guess, the core root of how he came to this um, ideology of the will to power. So it kind of goes through that, gives good insights. I guess if you look at it from a constructive criticism way of life, I personally was reading it, and Nietzsche's a very interesting guy, but I think that he contradicts himself, and he even critiques contradiction. Like, he contradicts himself, and I understand what he's saying and things of that nature, but I also think that um, he's, I guess his point is something that's just personal. It's like something that's very personal. He's not really trying to push this upon anyone. He's saying that if you could understand this, you can understand this. This would be good for you. And I guess he's saying that there's a certain type of person that aligns with this, and it's something that will be exposed in a natural way, and it's not something that will be influential. It's just a realization within that specific person. So it's not, he's not trying to influence people, but he's saying that if you are a person that aligns with this, then this is it. This is what things are. And I guess he's talking to a specific group of people that are just like him. Um, but I do like how he kind of pushes everything to the individual person to a certain way. But I think some of his ideologies and the way that he thinks does not promote social structure or promote any type of camaraderie within a society. And that if we lived by him, there probably wouldn't even be society to live from. So The Will to Power, long book. I had to write a lot of annotations while I'm reading this. The first half I was like, oh, it gives me this, but then the last half I was doing that, so kind of started to drag on. But it's a pretty good work. It's very thought-provoking, offers good perspective, and I would recommend it. It's not really something that is very popular in Nietzsche's sphere of work. It's not kind of known. But if you know his other works and then you read this, or I do would say that if you read this, it kind of gives you a basing of knowing how he thinks and how he writes. So I think honestly, like some people wouldn't recommend reading this. I've seen some people recommend other books to know this, but all of his works, you'll get the central idea of who Nietzsche is from this because it's his personal notebook. Now, there's actually a good history about this book. This book was actually used. It was published by his sister, and after he died, and when he died, she took control of his writing estate. And when she published this, she actually used this to push an anti-Semitic agenda and to push German nationalism, which was not what Nietzsche was about at all. He's quite adamant against all those things. He critiques most of Europe and kind of critiques a lot of those. He's more based on the individual. But this was used as propaganda, and even Nazis used this as propaganda. So a lot of this was taken out of context, and this book actually was given a bad rep because people thought that this was just straight anti-Semitic German Nazi dogma, but it wasn't. It was complete. It was the absolute complete opposite of that. And yeah, it gives a good understanding of thought, and I think it can help with critical thinking and the thought process and kind of knowing what your thought process is. Would I use this as a Bible to live by? No, I would not do that. But I think that's, it allowed me to cement some of the, my own philosophy and what my understanding of the world is and kind of just what the world is in general. It helped me with being able to kind of set in place those fundamentals. But yeah, I would say I would give this book a 3.5 out of 5. I would say just that since just the way that he has structured this, it's just the nature of the beast that it's just someone's notebook, so it's kind of, it can be weird. There's a lot of different concepts that he goes into, and I would say that him as a writer, he's good, but just some of his thought processes were just kind of a little abstract and kind of just not grounded in anything, so it kind of made what he was saying not have any meaning, but it's very personal to himself, so I guess it's more of a critique on his mind from saying that. But I'll give it 3.5 stars from a book perspective at a philosophy. But yeah, The Will to Power by Fredrich Nietzsche.